Hello, my dearest friends. Welcome back to my channel, Diane and the Book Hunt. And I have to say it's been a hot minute since I've sat down here at this spot to film because I was on holiday for about 2 weeks. But I'm back. I'm finally back so I can commence to get into the new year with new books that I'm excited to talk about, new books that I'm going to be reading, and I'm going to be starting the new year with a video that I've been seeing going around everywhere. And I think it's a good video to have because it will keep me accountable at the end of the year, I hope, to see if I'm really going to be picking up the books that I'm going to talk about today. Today's video is going to be 25 books that I want to pick up in 2025. Essentially, this is like a TBR video for the year where I'm going to talk about books that I'm very excited to pick up that are not 2025 releases. Now, I already did a video at the end of 2024 where I'm talking about books that I'm excited about, so most anticipated releases of 2025. So all of the books that I've discussed there are books that I'm planning on picking up whenever they release, so those are not going to be on this list. These are essentially books that have been on my TBR for a long time, or books that I've been seeing going around that are being hyped by my favorite booktubers, and also books by authors that I've been wanting to try out for a long time, but I have not gotten to them yet. So I'm just going to give you 25 books that I'm excited to pick up this year. And hopefully by the end of the year, I can come back to this video and see if I have done well, if I've really stuck to my plans to try to prioritize these books. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the books. And I'm just going to tell you the books and why I've picked them to be on this list. I'm not really going to go into the synopsises of these because for most of them, I actually don't want to know too much about them. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and dive into the books because there's 25 books to talk about. The first book on this list is a quite popular indie book that has been on my list for a long time. And it's by an author that I've not yet read, but I know that a lot of people that I follow really love this author. It's Sophie Lark. And I know that I think the first book that I need to pick up so that I can continue on with the other series that are kind of connected to this one, I think, if I've understood it correctly, the first book that I need to pick up is Brutal Prince. It's part of her Brutal Birthright series, which is a mafia series. And if I'm not mistaken, once one finishes this series, you can continue on to read a spin-off series that is based on the children of the characters in these books. And I've heard a lot of good things about those books as well. So I'm curious to see if I like this one. I'll probably continue on in the series and then just binge the backlist of this author if I enjoy it. So I'm going to hopefully pick up Sophie Lark for the first time in 2025. Now, I think that just like everyone else in the romance community, I'm very much into romantasy at the moment. So I definitely want to pick up a couple of romantasy books that I've not yet read that I know that a lot of people have been loving. One of these is A Spark of the Everflame by Pen Cole. I know that there is now, I think if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 books out, and I already got through Audible with 1 credit the first book just to try it out to see if I'm going to enjoy it. And if I do enjoy it, I'm going to continue on listening to the stories through Audible. And if I'm not mistaken, I heard that the first book is not very romance heavy, so it's more like a world building book. I don't mind that typically, but I'm curious to see if I'm going to be liking it. And then another romantasy book that I actually have a physical copy of here is The Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. This book has been on my TBR forever since it came out. And I think that actually the second book may have come out in the meanwhile. I just need to get caught up on these series. It's just that typically romantasy books are long. And I read a couple last year and I read a series last year and it takes a lot out of you. So I need to pace myself to pick up all these romantasy books that I'm going to be hopefully loving. So this one is on the list for 2025 as well. And then another one that has been on my list for a very long time is Pestilence by Laura Thalassa. This is an author that I've not yet explored. And I know that there is other series as well that are quite popular, but I want to read this one first. And I know that this one features a very kind of grumpy hero. There is some kind of quest, I think. I'm not sure what the book is about, but I want to read this one for sure. And I think I have it through KU, so I'm going to be reading it through Kindle. And then moving on to contemporaries, I definitely want to get caught up on Anna Huang's Backlist, because I got stuck on the Twisted series. I still need to finish Twisted Lies, but essentially I want to continue on with her new series, which are like King of Wrath and King of Pride and King of Envy, all these books. I want to get caught up on these books because I definitely think that I'm missing out on not reading them. So I want to get caught up on this series as well. And a book that has been on my TBR for such a long time, and I know that everyone loves this book, is For the Fans by Nyla Kay. This is a male-male romance, and I think they may be step-siblings. I'm not sure, but I definitely am looking forward to reading this. I know that it's a chunky book. If I'm not mistaken, it's quite long, but if it's any good, I don't mind the length. I definitely want to pick this up. Now that I'm looking at my list, I think I have another fantasy or romantasy, which is by Juliet Cross. This is called The Wraith King, and I have this on my list specifically because I saw Crystal and also Jenn from the Book Refuge. They both loved this book, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I have added it on my list because I've never read anything by Juliet Cross, and I think Juliet Cross will have a new release this year that will be out through Storytel, so I definitely will be picking up either this one or the new release to try out this author. So this one is definitely on my list as well. Now, the next couple of books I've added on my list because they have been sitting on my Kindle for such a long time, and I just need to finally finish them. The first one being A Man's World by Grace Newman. This is a Formula One sports romance where the heroine is the Formula One race driver. And I'm very much looking forward to reading a book where we have a female racer instead of a male racer. So I definitely want to get to this one. And then the next one up is called Plie by Jane Washington. This one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember the synopsis correctly, it may be like a very spicy, maybe white shoes, ballet situation romance. It may not be white shoes. I don't remember the synopsis of it, but I got caught up in scrolling through KU and I found this book. It has a gorgeous cover. I read the synopsis for it and it sounded very intriguing. And I really love dancing in romance, so I definitely want to get to this one. And then another book through KU that I definitely want to get to is by Candy Steiner. I have loved books by Candy Steiner that I've read before, and I really haven't read anything by Candy, so I haven't read the football series or the hockey series, but the one that has caught my attention the most is Learn Your Lesson, which is part of her hockey series, and I think it's a single dad romance, if I'm not mistaken. That one, I just saw a couple of graphics that she did, or like reels that she did on Instagram about it, and I really got intrigued by it. So I've downloaded it on KU and I really want to get to it. All right, so next up, we've got a book by Kathy Yardley. I've already sung Kathy Yardley's praises last year because of the book that I read by her, which is Role Playing. I really love that book, and I definitely want to read more by this author. And I saw that last year she had a new release, which is called Do Me a Favor. And I think it also centers on a hero and heroine who are kind of more mature, let's say it like that. So it's definitely an adult romance, and I'm just looking forward to exploring more by Kathy Yardley, honestly. Now, the next book that I have on my list is His Tesoro by Emilia Rossi. Now, this one I have on my radar because I saw a couple of booktubers and Instagram influencers that I love really praise this book. So I'm definitely intrigued and definitely want to pick this up in the new year. This one is a mafia romance where we've got disability rep. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the heroine is in a wheelchair, and I think the hero is obsessed with her, if I remember correctly, all of the things that I was loving about this book. So I definitely want to read this one. It's a mafia romance, so yeah, sign me up. Now, another book that I think, again, Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life influenced me to put it on my TBR is called Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. This is a paranormal fantasy book, and it's quite long, and I have it available through audio on Storytel, so I definitely want to get to it this year. I don't know if there is like if I should be reading anything else by J. Kristoff before I get to this one, but I know that this one is the first, I think, within a series, or maybe a standalone. I'm not sure, but I'm going to be picking this up this year because I definitely want to diversify my reading in terms of genres. I don't want to only read fantasy romance. I also want to read more fantasy kinds of books. So I definitely want to read this one as well. And then another book that has been on my list for such a long time. I have the physical copy of it here, and I know that everyone loves this book, is by M.L. Wong. It's called The Sword of Kaigan. And I actually read one of my last books of last year was by M.L. Wong, and I really loved it. So I definitely am looking forward to this one. I have the physical copy, but I also purchased the audiobook through Audible. So I'm going to be reading along with both of them. And another book that I got through Audible that I'm very excited about is a release from last year by Carissa Broadbent. I've loved everything that Carissa Broadbent has put out that I've read, so I'm definitely on the lookout to pick up The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which is the continuation, like the third book within her Serpent and the Wings of Night, so The Crown of Nyaxia, I think the series is called. I am looking forward to this one. I am a bit hesitant because I heard that some people didn't love it as much as the first two books, but I want to make up my own mind, so I'm definitely going to be picking this up in the new year. Now, another book that I'm very excited about because I heard Crystal loved it is Hexed by Emily McIntyre. This book is one of her kind of Disney reimaginings. I've only read Scarred by her from this series, and I really enjoyed it. And then I heard Crystal talk about Text. This one actually is based on, I think, The Little Mermaid. And based off of what Crystal said about this book, I just got intrigued by it, so I've put it on my list as well. It released last year, I think, and I'm definitely excited about it. Now, speaking about diversifying my reading, I definitely want to read some other genres than romance and romantasy. So I've put The Women by Kristen Hanna on my list. This is a literary, like historical fiction kind of a book. And I know that it was a favorite of people from last year. I think it was on the Goodreads Choice Awards, and Kristen Hanna overall is a very beloved historical fiction author. And I know that she has other books that are also quite popular, but I think the synopsis of this one was most intriguing to me because it features a character who is going to the Vietnam War as a nurse. So I'm really curious about this topic, so I definitely want to explore this genre by picking up this book first. And then coming back to contemporary romances, I've got a couple of books that were on my list to pick up last year, but I didn't get to them last year, so they're moving on to this year's TBR. First one being Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I have gotten caught up on the Chestnut Spring series. I've read all of the books now, so I can continue on with her new series. I definitely want to get to Wild Love, and if I can, also Wild Eyes this year, so I can move on to the new release that is coming out this year. And then also another book that came out last year that I want to get to is Playbook by Rebecca Genshak, because I loved Burnout within this series. Playbook is the next book, and then we have a new release that is coming out this month, I think. So I just want to get caught up on this series because they focus on a family of brothers, and I am invested in their stories now, so I definitely want to get to them. And then another book that has been on my TBR for a long time, ever since Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl raved about this book. This one is called Maestro by Autumn Dar, and I don't know too much about it anymore because I heard about it way back when. I think it's focusing on like a music composer, like a classical musician. I'm not sure what the story was about, but it's quite a chunky book if I remember correctly. And she mentioned that it was quite angsty, so sign me up on the angst. I really love these kinds of books, and musicians in books, yes please. So this one is definitely going to get read in 2025. Mark my words, I'm signing the paper here. I need to read this one. And then I also need to read a book by Julia Wolf. I've not yet read anything by Julia Wolf, and I've been seeing the covers of this series by Julia Wolf going around. And the one that I want to start with is Sincerely Your Inconvenient Wife. I know that there is a book before that. That one, if I'm not mistaken, is a brother's best friend romance, which I'm not the biggest fan of. And there's been so many coming out lately that I'm kind of steering away from those a little bit. So I want to start with this one. And if I like it, then I'll get to, I think that one that is very popular is called Intolerably Yours, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that everyone has been loving that one. So I definitely want to try out Julia Wolf in 2025. And then the next book that I want to get to is, I think, a monster romance. It's called Soul Eater by Lily Mayne. I know that Ava from Ava Romance Books and a couple of other booktubers that I follow, they liked this book, and I have it through Storytel on audio format, so I definitely want to pick this up to cross off my never-ending audiobook TBR on Storytel as well. And where am I at? I still have about 3 books, I think, to go. Yeah, I have 3 books to go. One of them being Endgame by Indy Valentine. Now, Indy Valentine is the pen name for Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl. So we have a newly published debut author within our booktube community. I'm so happy to support Cheyenne. I definitely want to pick up her first book to support her. I know it's a baseball romance, and I just am very curious about how she did with her first book. I'm very excited to read it. I'm very excited to talk about it. So I'm definitely picking this up in 2025. And then the next one is Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider. This is a romantasy book that I saw Tori from Novel Life talking about last year. And I think also Crystal picked it up at some point, and she was very interested about how the magic system works within this romantasy world. So I am curious about it as well. I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for all the romantasies in 2025. So this one is on my TBR as well. And then the last book, I don't know if I can hold myself accountable to read this book in 2025, but I'm putting it on this list because everyone has been loving this fan fiction, and I've not yet read a fan fiction. So this should be like a goal of mine to pick up a fan fiction in 2025. It's Manacled by Sun Lin Yu. This fan fiction I downloaded because now it's not available anymore, if I'm not mistaken, because you're going to get traditionally published. But I have it on my Kindle, and I just need to bite the bullet and start on it because it's such a long journey. I don't know, but it's something like 1,500 or 1,700 pages. It's Draco and Hermione fan fiction. I am not a fan of Harry Potter. I know that it's like a strike against me that I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I just am not. But I've heard through the grapevine that you don't need to have read or seen the movies of Harry Potter to be able to enjoy this. So I'm just going to give it a try. I think I'm going to give it a try to see if it's going to wreck me as much as everyone else has been wrecked by this fanfiction. So yeah, I'm putting it on this list to try to see if I can mark it off of my TBR because it's definitely been there ever since I heard about it for the first time. All right, my friends, so these were the 2025 books that I've put on my TBR to read in 2025. I really hope that I get to most of these. I did a similar kind of video last year, and I think I crossed off about 60% of the books, which is quite good if you ask me. I do still need to get caught up on the books that I didn't read yet, but obviously these are all books that I'm just going to prioritize because they've been sitting on my TBR and they're by authors most of the time that I've not yet explored, and I'm very curious to explore new authors in the new year. Please let me know what your priority TBR reads are for this new year. Let me know if any of the books that I've mentioned are on your TBR as well. And I hope to see you in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care.